All right, guys, Jeff Sentell here, and a special little ditty we've got here for Before the Hedges. I wanted to call it Mic Drop with Mike Johnson. I wanted to call it Real Talk or Keeping It Real. We got Mike Johnson, everything at Alabama, NFL player. We're going to jump into some highlights, and we're going to break down what he sees, Mike, because the eye in the sky does not lie, right?
Yeah, not only did I used to play college and I used to play in the NFL, but I was a one-time recruit myself. So watching a lot of these high school players and getting to see them kind of build up from that direction is a big deal.
So first things first, we're going to cue up Xavier Truss for this week. But Mike, before we jump into the film, I want to ask you, every player that's kind of good in high school comes to the college level and they think, if I do this, if I do that, what is that mindset like when they get into the first 30 days of camp and they're lining up against the big boys? What is that adjustment period like for any high school recruit?
Yeah, no, it's all about mental toughness. I mean, you have these things you want to come in and work on. You want to work on foot speed. You want to work on punching. You want to work on your one-on-one pass rush. But, 10 plays into a scrimmage, 10 plays into a practice, 50 plays into a practice, it's 110 degrees outside. All of a sudden, you're not thinking about that anymore. So that's one of the things those guys have to really turn the corner on, making sure they're focused on everything they can do on that play. Not worrying about the heat, not worrying about their girlfriend at home, making sure they're focused on that play. It's mental toughness.
All right, guys, let's dive into the film. Xavier Truss, the greatest recruit in the history of Rhode Island. Now, Mike, when you see a recruit for the first time, what are the first things your trained eye looks for?
Well, on offensive line, I think it's foot speed. When you look at a guy like this, and especially, his size kind of jumps off the page. 6'7", 350 pounds out of Rhode Island. You're looking at the foot speed. You're seeing that the feet can catch up to that guy with that size of a body. And obviously here, I think it's pretty good foot speed. I don't know if it's elite foot speed, but you're talking about a guy who probably wears a 16, 17, 18 shoe, being able to move around pretty well.
So you're looking at this, and anybody's going to go, big kid, but this is Rhode Island football. How do you look for things in his own little box that stand out when maybe the other guy's not a future SEC player?
Right, and it's tough. And I think you have to look at his ability to kind of accelerate his feet when he's locked on. Obviously, he's going to have huge hands. Anytime he gets his hands on somebody, he's going to be able to lock them down. But how well does he roll his hips? How well does he accelerate his feet? Can he finish on every play? Does he have that kind of nasty streak that you see come along with some of these five-star offensive linemen out of high school? I think he does. I mean, I think this is a guy with pretty good foot speed. He accelerates really well. And obviously, like I said, when he gets his hands on somebody, you can see on the film right here, when he gets his hands on somebody, he is a next level player.
You see the mean streak in a lot of these films that you can't teach?
Yeah, definitely. And it goes both ways. You don't want to see anybody do anything that's out of character for them. You don't want to see them take a cheap shot because they weigh 100 pounds more than the next guy. But playing within themselves and making sure they play with good technique is the most important thing. And obviously, it looks like he's doing that pretty well here on the film.
Looking at this, Mike, do you see him as a left tackle potentially or right tackle? Where do you see his best fit?
I think, in a couple of years, when you get that foot speed up to where it probably should be, I can see him definitely being a right tackle. I don't know if this guy is a future left tackle. Obviously, the size is going to be a big deal. I think that maybe he could play that way in college, but I think the most elite spot he can be is probably at right tackle or maybe inside. I think he's a good player. I think he's got a lot of strength. I mean, it's elite strength when you watch him. But the left tackles right nowadays, especially at a place like Georgia, have elite foot speed. He's got a little bit of work to do in that category.
Give me one thing that you really like about him and one thing that you would probably start coaching him up on if you were working with him.
Well, I think his ability to kind of keep his head out on some of these run blocking plays. You're going to have linebackers at this college level that will swim move you. That if you stick your head down, those guys are going to go right past you. I think one of the things I really like about him is his ability to roll his hips. The ability to engage those legs and arms at the same time and use that core to kind of stand that defensive lineman up and push him backwards. He's really, really good at that, and I think that translates extremely well as soon as he gets to college.
All right, guys, that's Mike Johnson. I'm Jeff Sentell. That was the first installment of Real Talk with four-star offensive tackle Xavier Truss. Now back to Before the Hedges.